In this episode, I talk to none other than Tom McCarthy. Now, Tom is a world-renowned keynote speaker, coach. He's worked with many of the elite professionals in terms of tech CEOs, titans of industry, sports professionals, elite athletes. He's worked with them from a mindset perspective, but also from an elite performance perspective. So Tom will come in when everything's on the line, peak performance, peak state. Tom's book, The Breakthrough Code, is really, really good because it breaks down how you go about getting these breakthroughs in life. Like, simply put, we need breakthroughs in life. When we're going outside of our comfort zone, that's what we're aiming for, is a breakthrough. We're leveling up. And Tom's book takes you through how to do that. But critically, and what I love about it, is it gives you the habits of how you can build that into your life. So it's not just telling you what to do, it's telling you how you change your behavior to be able to do it consistently over time. It was a joy to have Tom on the show. It really was. It was an absolute pleasure to speak to him, to really understand more about his philosophy, his lifestyle, the way that the concepts have originated from the book, why he chose to write it as a story. And I know that if you just spend the 45 minutes digesting the material, you'll really get something out of it that could actually change your life. It could see how you transform your current reality rather than conform to your current reality. I think that's a big point. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Tom McCarthy. So yeah, Tom McCarthy, welcome to the show. You're the world's peak performance coach. You're a keynote speaker. You've written this fantastic book, The Breakthrough Code, which I recommend everybody go out and buy because it's going to change your life. And it is a story about living without limits, which I love. I love that it's about removing the limitation from your life. And I know that you're all about stepping into greatness and getting people to live a life they're truly meant to live. So thank you, Tom, for coming on and for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Yeah, good to be with you, Tim. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, like this is a dream come true for me. And I want to start with a quote that I know you resonate with deeply, and it's your quote, like, the average conforms to their current reality. Greatness creates a whole new reality. And I'd like to preface the conversation with that because I can just see how that changes everything, right? If we can start changing our reality and we understand that we're not going to conform, how we can start stepping into greatness.
Well, it's really easy to conform. That's what most people do, right? They start their day off, they see what's going on, they just kind of get in the flow where everyone else is. And so that's the de facto way that most people live their lives. And I've done that in my life. We've all done that certain periods of our life. But it's really restricting and it doesn't feel good when you're just kind of going along and doing what everyone else is doing. So my goal in life now is to help people shift reality. Greatness, that when you step into greatness, you're literally bending reality. You're creating a new reality, which is exciting. You don't have to settle for what is most likely to happen today. You can start shifting. And it doesn't always happen right away. If you've been in a pattern for a long time, creating a new reality, shifting reality may take some time because you've got to shift old patterns. You've got to get rid of old belief systems. There's work to do. And when we say living a life without limits, it doesn't mean that everything is perfect all the time. I know that's what people want. That'd be kind of boring too. Like if you didn't have, an area of your life that needed a little attention. I mean, that's kind of the fun of things, is growing through some of these challenges. But living a life without limits means when you spot a blockage or when you realize you're limiting yourself, you now know how to break through that and start to create more freedom, more success, prosperity, health, love, happiness, whatever it is you want.
Fantastic. Yeah, you're speaking to my heart there, Tom. Like, I think as well, like in the book, and just to kind of focus on this, you talk about breakthrough results rather than goals. And that's an important point because I know a lot of people, we talk about goals and achieving goals. Can you just explain the importance of that language specifically?
Yeah, years ago, because I always had goals growing up, and it's still a term that kind of sometimes drops in my head, right, in my language, unknowingly. But one of the things I noticed was that, I would have a bunch of different goals, and some I would achieve and some I wouldn't. And there's almost a mindset about a goal. It's like, okay, I'm going to set a goal and it's a 50-50 proposition, hopefully I'll get it, might not, I've not achieved everything I wanted in the past. So I just said, I want to have a stronger word for me. And because everything you put into your mind has to be consumed. It has to be figured out. If I put goal in my mind, then, experiences with goals are okay. I may or may not get it. I want something stronger, something more powerful. So I just started saying result, because a result for most people is something that's already happened. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, when I work with Olympic athletes or world champions or heads of corporations or whatever it is, whoever I'm working with, the thing that we're working with in their minds is to already see this future result, but see it already having happened right now. Now, total mind game. It's in your imagination. But if you seed your mind, if you seed your imagination with a true sense of this has already happened, now the mind can really go to work on it, because it doesn't have like mixed signals. Well, are we going to get this? Are we not going to get it? No, it's a result. So that's why I started using that word. And then, my philosophy is, don't have too many things that you're trying to create a breakthrough in. Now, you can have lots of different things you want to accomplish, but a breakthrough is where you're stuck. And, maybe your business is not where you want it to be, or your relationship or your health. So you're kind of stuck, and that's going to require focus. And it's also going to require you seeing it already done right now. Now, that's crazy for most people, because like, how can I see it already done when it's not, I can't touch it, I can't feel it? That's one of the most important keys to greatness, living a life without limits. Everything's created twice. First, inside. It's got to be created inside your mind first with certainty. Then the mind, the superconscious mind, which is incredibly powerful, will really start working on helping you to make that happen in the outside world.
Man, I love this. Yes, this is exactly it. And I think people do get a bit lost when we talk about connecting it and not seeing it from the physical first, like getting the result first and then acting as if. It's really looking inside and really being able to have that faith. So something in the book you talk about is focus on less than obsess. Now, I know that's what you were referring to when you talk about focus and streamlining things. The word obsession, it sometimes has a negative connotation. Like, what do we mean in this context?
Yeah, you have people that have what's called an obsessive compulsive disorder, right? That's not a great thing to have, where you're just obsessing. But you have two parts of your mind. You've got a conscious mind, and most people that are obsessing in a negative way, they're obsessing consciously. They're just always using their conscious mind, which is a fairly primitive tool. It can process 40 bits of information per second, which is pretty good. But you've got this whole other part of your mind called I call it the superconscious, but most people call it the subconscious. And to me, it's, subconscious means it's below your conscious level of thinking, right? It's not the thoughts we're thinking with our conscious mind, but there's another level of thought that's going on that is in the superconscious, and the superconscious or subconscious can process 40 million things every second, 40 million bits of information per second. So give the job to obsessing to the superconscious, because it's got plenty of capability. And then what we use our conscious mind for is just to program the superconscious and to deal with life. But the reality is, the conscious mind only really is responsible for about 5% of the decisions you make, of the things you do in life. Most of what is happening in our life has been programmed down into superconscious, into our habits, into our belief systems, and then that is creating our reality.
Fantastic. I love that you phrase it, the superconscious mind, and you're explaining there just the capacity for unlimited results that can come. Like, there's zero limitations in the superconscious mind. Like,
it is like having a superpower. And by the way, it's always working. So people go, well, mine's not. No, yours is working. It's creating what you've got right now. Whatever your program is in, but if you've got a program that was put in, let's say your parents struggled financially, and they said life's tough, it's hard to get ahead. Only good people don't end up having money, or whatever, all these crappy programs that we unknowingly get down into our superconscious, and then our life is a reflection of that. So you've got to do some work down in the superconscious. You got to pull out the old beliefs, and you've got to put in what I call a better story. But it is obsessing already. The superconscious is already obsessing over whatever has been programmed in there. If you don't like what's showing up in your life, the superconscious is creating that, but it's not its fault. It's just doing whatever you told it to do through the thoughts you're thinking, through the programs, through the belief systems. And so if you want a better result in life, you've got to go in there and you've got to change that.
So what are some of the ways we can get rid of some of those old disempowering stories that we can really focus on to actually remove that from our superconscious mind?
Yeah, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to be aware of what your programming is. And so that'll start showing up in your outside life. Why am I always struggling financially? Or why is it so hard to be in a great relationship? So you start to notice the challenges. So your outside life, the struggles, the emotional feelings you have will kind of tell you some clues of what's down in there. But I spend every day just kind of, if I'm not feeling good or there's something not going on and going the way I wanted to in my life, I'm like, all right, what's the belief system behind that? I just go, well, that just happened. It's just coincidence. No, I'm going to take some responsibility. I created it. What's going on? And then I try to work to figure out what the belief is, maybe what's an old experience or a trauma or just thoughts that I've unknowingly put in, or whatever we watch, conversations we have, it all goes in. So you got to be super careful what you watch on TV. My wife was watching Games of Thrones right before we were going to bed. This is a while back. And I was watching a couple episodes, like, I can't watch this. I cannot watch all this violence, right? I just didn't want that in my mind. So you go down, you figure out what's in there. And then once you figure out what's in there, there's a lot of tools. I put a lot on I think I put like 7 on my Instagram, which is at the Tom McCarthy, little 1-minute videos with about 7 tools. But the one I wrote about in the book's called the Shredder, where everything's a mind game. So just imagine you've got like a little shredder, a little paper shredder. And what do we put in a paper shredder? Stuff we don't want anymore. The mind knows that. So if you do a little picture of a shredder and you imagine, again, this is all in your imagination, but you imagine a memory or a thought or a belief system, and just imagine, in whatever way, maybe you see it as a sheet of paper or just see it as whatever, gobbledygook, but just run it through a shredder and really feel it going through. The superconscious mind responds primarily to 2 things. What a vision that you can give it, a visualization you can give it, something it can see, or something it can feel, or best is having both of those things. But just talking to it, words are not as powerful. Visualizing and feeling the superconscious really takes hold when you do that.
So that's why people make mistakes with affirmations, because they're not putting themselves into the feeling. They're not really saying them with belief. And that's why having a visual of what you want and really pressing that upon the subconscious mind is important, because it can grab hold of that image.
Yeah, let's say you want to be more confident, like an affirmation, I'm confident. The way I said that did nothing to me. But if I really, if I start to feel like, what would it feel like to be confident? And, what would it look like? And I close my eyes and I'm confident and I really feel it. Now I can feel it. I can feel it when I just do that. And that's second, increasing my confidence.
Okay. So to take this a step further, we've got something called universal life force, and the fact that thoughts are energy. How does that universal life force connect to our superpower?
Yeah. So again, this is my belief system around it. And I think there's evidence out there, but there's some people that this might be a stretch. So I don't believe your superconscious mind is just in your body. I think actually the mind is shaping your body, right? And the mind extends out beyond your body. So where does it extend out to? It extends out to, it's funny, even today, I was just thinking about someone who I hadn't talked to in a long time. And literally, I was thinking about them, and about an hour later, I got an email from them. Now, how did that happen? If my thought if my thought was just in my mind, in my body, then there was nothing going out there. But I've had that happen so many times. My son had an experience that I think I talked about on the podcast that you saw, but he was raising money to buy a company. So he has senior partners, but he was raising money to buy a company, and it was a big company, very famous company. I can't say the name, but it was a big deal. And I told him, I said, look, program your mind. He's a big believer in this. Program your mind to always be in the right place at the right time. And so he did. He started, he does like self-hypnosis, meditates, programs his mind. And so he calls me up like a week later and he said, Dad, you'll never believe what happened. I said, what? He said, well, I've been running that program and I'm always in the right place at the right time. I said, yeah. I said, what happened? Well, he goes, I was walking down the street. He lives up in Los Angeles, West LA, or West Hollywood, excuse me. And he said, I'm walking down the street and this guy's jogging towards me. And all of a sudden, right before he gets to me, he stops. And he said, I don't know why I'm stopping, because I live in Beverly Hills. I don't even usually come this way, but something's telling me that I need to stop and talk to you.
Wow.
So my son's like, okay. And I said, did it kind of freak you out a little bit? He goes, yeah. And I said, how old was the guy? He goes, Dad, he was really old. He's like your age, he told me. And I said, all right. And I said, well, what did he say? He asked me what I did. And I told him, he said, I told him I was an investor. He goes, I'm an investor too. And so they talked for just like a minute. My son didn't learn a lot about him, but the guy gave him his name and contact information. He said, look, I don't know why I stopped, but if there's ever a reason we should talk, let me know. My son goes back and looks him up. The guy's a billionaire, and he's also the founder and managing director of a $4 billion private equity fund. My son called him up, said, I think we should talk. So they meet 2 days later at lunch, and then they meet 2 days after that for dinner, where the guy brought another guy in. And those two guys end up committing $100 million each to that deal. Now, how the heck did that happen? Well, you could say it's coincidence. That's one of the weirdest coincidences, probably, or strangest ones. But I do believe the mind extends beyond the body. I believe that the mind is out there working for you in so many different ways of getting information or finding the right person that can come into your life. So when you program this superconscious mind, I think it goes out. I don't even know what the limitations are of where it goes, but I have so many great, amazing experiences in my life. And I have so many people that we've taught this to that it will blow you away. Now, you've got to have faith, though. You've got to believe that it's going to go out and do that. If you do it one little time and go, it didn't work yet, then yeah, it's not going to do that. You've got to truly believe in it. You got to buy in, like my son does. He's a huge believer in the mind, and it will work for you. And it doesn't always work exactly the way you think it will. Like my son, I'm sure, never thought some guy's going to come running down the street and stop in front of him, but it works.
Exactly. That was quite an explicit one where you stood right in front of you. And I guess, do you think then your son was on the right frequency, and the same as that gentleman, they were sort of connected on that? The mind has gone outside of the body, and there's a frequency that they were on, and they were on a similar frequency, and they were like, hey, I don't know why, but this has got to happen, and we've got to talk.
Yeah. And that's not so strange. Like you and I are on a frequency right now called, we're using Zoom, and it's, you're in Singapore, I'm in California, but we're connected. I can see you. Like we don't even question that. We don't question picking up the phone and calling somebody. Yeah. Right. But how does it do that? It goes through the air. Like, how does it do that? It's a signal. It's an electronic signal. Guess what? Our bodies are electric. We have 3.5 billion cells or something like that, some crazy number. And each of those cells has an electric charge. So we are electric. Our mind is energized, and it can go out and can communicate the same way we can with a phone call, a Zoom call. All these things are possible.
This is just, totally speaking my language. One thing that I really, really want to talk about while I've got you on the show is, say someone's put all this into practice. They're starting to change their superconscious mind. The habits are forming. They're taking the actions. It's what I love about the book. The book is so real, because you don't just set it up like okay, and then it all comes into play. Because something I see, especially with coaching clients, especially with people that reach out to me, is they're doing the right things, but then the result isn't happening and they get
Mm.
freaked out.
Yeah. A lot of times after you start doing all the right things, you'll run into an adversity. And then they go, oh, great. Why is this showing up? It's not what I want. Usually it's exactly what you need. And sometimes it's pretty tough stuff, but it's exactly what you need to be able to grow through it in order to become the kind of person that can have what you are looking for, what you really want. You know, one of the statistics here in the US is that when people have unexpected huge windfall, like, you know, winning $20 million in the lottery, but they haven't grown themselves to be able to handle that amount of money because they weren't making any money or making very little money. What typically happens, even though it's a large amount of money, it could be 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, they end up losing it within a few years. The last house that we lived in before we bought this one, we didn't buy it directly from someone who'd won a lottery, but someone who'd won a lottery, bought that house, went bankrupt, someone else bought it, and then we bought it from that person. So what was happening there? They weren't ready. They hadn't gone through the evolution of being able to handle that much energy. Money's just energy, right? Success is just energy. Everything's energy. Everything is energy. And so you've got to get yourself ready to handle more energy. If you want to be more successful, that's more energy you're going to have to deal with. And if you're not ready for it, you'll blow it. You'll resist it. You'll sabotage yourself. So these adversities oftentimes are the things that make you learn something that you wouldn't have learned or grow in an area that you wouldn't have grown in. I'm not saying we only do that through adversity, because I don't believe that. I think we can learn through fun and great experiences too. But sometimes life is saying, and in combination with us, all right, let's put him through a little challenge here just to make sure he's really committed to this and so that he can grow through it.
Yeah, so the adversity is there. And if you're getting adversity, then potentially you're actually on the right track. It was meant to be there, but it's what separates you from your result is actually traveling through that adversity and becoming more as a person. So if we take that and we know that we're supposed to do the adversity and go through it, what are some of the actions? Like, I know that we need to be kind of guided by this superconscious mind. And sometimes that can be unnerving when there's an absence of evidence. Like, what are some of the actions we can take to be able to do that?
Yeah, a lot of it is belief or faith, you know, and I'm a spiritual person, not necessarily super religious in any way, but very, very spiritual and believe in a higher power. But in the Bible, you know, one of the sayings that Jesus said, which I love, is that, you know, if you had the faith the size of a mustard seed, right, you'd be able to tell that mountain to move from here to there, and it would move, and nothing would be impossible for you. But what we do is we look too much to the physical world to create certainty and belief and faith. You know, has it happened yet? Has it happened yet?
Mm.
And what I'm encouraging people to do is to go inside and create faith and certainty, and keep your faith and certainty as long as you need to. How long will it take? It's going to take as long as it takes, right?
Mm.
It wouldn't be healthy, I don't think, if everything happened immediately right after you thought it, right? Because we think some pretty crazy crap, right? And so, like, you know, some bad stuff, like, you know, you think, well, why'd that happen? So I think you have to trust the lag. There's always a little bit of a lag time. Sometimes it's a little bit of a time. Sometimes it can take months or even years before something happens. If it's a big, huge thing you want to accomplish. I mean, I've got some financial results that they're huge, but I know they're going to take, I mean, I'm targeting the end of 2024. And if it takes longer than that, I'm still going to create certainty inside my mind. You know, it takes as long as it takes.
Fantastic. So life is a mind game. And I love that you call this out so much in the book. And I think it's early on in the book, but it's kind of transcends all the way through. That life is a mind game, and you've got to basically gear your mind to set yourself up to win. And that goes to the stories as well, right? Like, you can just can we talk about that piece around recreating the stories from the past as well as the future?
Yeah. So there's the second big idea is upgrade your story to upgrade your life. And just like a phone, like our phone, our computer, new software comes out. Oh, I'm going to get the upgrade. Well, guess what? Your mind needs an upgrade too, but we're not going, oh, I want to upgrade my mind. Most of us are like, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with me. It's the outside world. Okay. The outside world is a reflection of what's going on inside you. And we are creating the outside world every minute that we live and breathe and exist in this body on this planet here. So we have to continue to work on that inside. And at the end of the day, all we really are the stories we tell ourselves of who we are. Mm-hmm. I used to be not a great investor. I mean, I was actually with a Wall Street firm right out of college, but I had some investments when I first started out, probably after being on with the Wall Street firm, where I made some investments. I didn't make good choices. I lost some money, and inside my mind is like, I'm not that good at this. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Don't carry that story around in your head. Why do you have that story? Just because you looked at a couple things that didn't go well? So I got that out and I started telling myself, look, I'm an outstanding investor. The best opportunities come to me. I make great decisions, and I created a story around that. And now, this past year, I've been doing this for a long time, so I've got lots of investments all over. But this past year, I was part of taking 3 companies public. So on investments that I made, so huge windfalls. Now that happened because I changed what's inside my mind. I don't know if you can see behind me, but back there, there's a trophy on the right. It's a trophy. I won a poker tournament in 2005. Yeah. But I'd only played poker once before in my life. I got invited to play. I was going to play against some World Series of poker players, champion players. And at first I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, it's for a good cause, charity, but I don't even know how to play. I didn't study the game that much. I played once before in my life, like, 20 years before. But I had one guy take about 10, 15 minutes, show me the hands. But all I did was I created a story inside my mind. And the story was only 2 little lines. 2 thoughts. I said, I made great decisions and I found a way to win. And I just put that in my mind whenever I thought about the poker tournament. I had about 10 days. I didn't practice, didn't study. I worked on my mind. And I even, when I was leaving, I told my wife, hey, I'm going to go play in this poker tournament. She goes, what time's it start? I said, 6:30. She said, I'll see you at 7. Like, she had no confidence in me. Right? But I didn't even let that get me down, right? I went there and I just felt so confident because I'd played it so much in my mind. I created a story that I won this thing and I made great decisions. I didn't tell myself I had the most experience. I just said I made great decisions. I found a way to win. And I end up winning it. And I get back at like 1:30 in the morning and, she's asleep. I couldn't resist, coming in with my trophy, flipping the light on, guess who's home, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of stories, another ball back there is from the soccer ball, red and white soccer ball. I don't know if you can see that one, but
that's right. That's
the Arsenal Football Club. And they called me right before in 2005, they were called the Invincibles in the English Premier League. They did not lose a game the entire year. There were sports psychologists that had gone through some trainings I did and called me up right before the final FA Cup game. And he said, look, I'm getting ready to talk to the team on Friday. And he called me on a Wednesday. He said, what should I tell them? They play on Saturday. What should I tell them? And the thing I told them is, look, in their mind right now, they've got to know they've already won. They've got to go to bed knowing they found a way to win. Not like, okay, let's see how we do tomorrow. I mean, that's all right. But when you know you're the champs and you show up, and even if you go down 1-0, it's like, we got this. That's a different level. But that comes through that story that we put in our head. And they ended up winning, which I take all the credit for. I'm just kidding. It's such a simple concept. But they sent me that ball. It's signed by all the players. I gave it to my son at first, who was like 5 or 6 years old at the time. And then I found out it was worth like $15,000. So I had to take it back from him and put it up there.
No, that's really important. I think just calling out how much change you can get from rewiring your mind, reprogramming your subconscious mind, and keeping repeating it, because it's
do it every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. So, and Does that translate then to your own personal life mantra? And what should people be doing to create a powerful, impactful mantra that they can kind of start to change their life with?
Yeah, I like it when people so you can create situational stories for whatever you're doing. Like I was in Europe years ago, it was many years ago, and I was doing some leadership training. So I do a lot of speaking all over the world. Been to Singapore many times, spoken over there. But I was doing these leadership trainings. I did, and they were 2-day trainings. I had like 1,000 people in each of them. I started in Luxembourg, and then I went to Frankfurt, and then we finished off in London. So it was like boom, 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 like
Mhm.
a lot of speaking, big crowds, and I lost my voice in Luxembourg. So I get to
Whoa.
Frankfurt, and I had a microphone, but my voice was like this. This is about all I could talk. So I'm going through a whole day talking like this with my voice. My throat was sore, and people were really. I remember I got to London. People were like super worried, like, "Hey, you okay?" And they're giving me all these potions and lotions and things like that, and then getting needles, acupuncture, all sorts of stuff. And then someone
Wow.
said, "You know what it is? You know what it is? It's because you travel." And on airplanes, there's the air conditioning, and everyone's germs are coming in, and that's why you're getting sick and losing your voice. And I'm like, okay, I thought about it for a second, like that kind of makes sense, yeah. But then I'm like, no, heck no, I'm not going to buy into that because I travel all over. And so I created a whole new belief system, a story that didn't make any sense other than to me. I just said, it's a mind game. I said, air conditioning on airplanes strengthens my immune system.
Mhm.
And I just started believing that. And I've never had that problem since. So you can think about how crazy the world is, anyways, right? Think about the things people are doing based upon belief systems they have, like crazy stuff that is not always helpful. But it just shows how whatever you put in your head, like here in the United States, we've had all sorts of political upheaval and all sorts of things going on, and people not wanting to even get along with other people, and why? Because they have a belief system in their head that's different
Right.
from someone else's. So I'm just about creating belief systems in me that allow me to win, allow me to work well with other people, allow me to be happy, allow me to be more loving, allow me to be more successful. So I'm not looking for, is it accurate to everyone else? I'm just putting stuff in my mind that allows me to win and be happy and have fun.
And what I love about your work is that you taught people. I mean, your ability to communicate is second to none. Like it is second to none. And the way that you break down ideas, you don't just tell them what to do and show them. You show them the habits that are going to help them build and get that result. And that's how important is really dialing in on those habits to be able to recreate your life.
Well, your habits run 95% of your life, and your habits are running down constantly in your superconscious mind. That's where your habits are, not in your conscious mind. The habits go down into your superconscious, and a habit is like a default program, and we need habits.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we'd have to be thinking about something every single time. Unfortunately, I've got my mother-in-law has dementia, and so she knows who I am, my wife, our children, but she has to figure out how to get back to her room. She lives with us here, how to get back to her room every single time. And so it's a struggle because that habit is not there. So habits are good, like the habit of brushing your teeth when you get up. You're not thinking about it, you just go brush your teeth, right? It's just part of who you are. So when we can put really good habits down into our super conscious, then life is easier because by default, we're doing these great things. So it's important to figure out what are the habits you want running your life, and what are the ones that are down there right now that you don't want. Like if you have a habit of always worrying, like get that out,
Mm.
and instead put in a habit of feeling confident and safe, and putting yourself in growth mode where you want to learn, and you're not worrying about making a mistake, because if you make a mistake, it's something you can learn from and get better from. So habits are the key.
So you also do a lot of speaking, and as I mentioned, like your communication is just so on point and so clear. Like it's so crystal clear in terms of you're almost answering the next question that the person has in their mind to be able to then take them on a journey. What are some of the tips, I think, from the perspective of, I work with a lot of people that they want to get better in the area of presentation, like, and they'll go into a meeting, a boardroom, or they'll be doing a meaningful presentation, maybe to a company,
Yeah.
or they want to become a speaker. What are some of the tips that you could share around presentations?
Yeah, so that's one of the fields of expertise that I have, not only as a speaker, but I've coached. I coach a lot of top executives in the tech companies when they've got big presentations, and then I have a company that does presentation training for corporations primarily, but all over the world. It's part of what we do over in Singapore, actually.
Right.
So I wrote a book called "Win the Presentation Game," and to me, winning is helping somebody. So communicating a value proposition in a way where somebody takes action on it, and they win, and then you win by them obviously using your product or service, or inviting you to speak again, or whatever it might be. But there's three big things, and I was not a good speaker when I was young. I didn't even want to be. I was involved in running Tony Robbins' company, and he put me in front of 1,000 people, and I bombed.
Mhm.
And so I had to figure it out, and I didn't want to, because I'm like, oh, I'm just no good at this. Like, this is not one of my skills that I'm good at. But what I did was I started studying the best people on the planet. Like, what do they do? The best speakers. And I figured out they did three things. They had a methodology for creating what I call a compelling story, which is your presentation or message. Now, think about what most people do. What do? They put a bunch of PowerPoint slides together, and then they just kind of read through that. Well, no one's going to really like that. But if you've got a story, if you can have a story that kind of grabs our attention, then evolves, that's awesome. So you need a methodology for creating a great evolving of your message, a story like evolving. And so there's a lot we can talk about in that, but probably too long for right now. One thing I would give people is, when you figure out your value proposition, like, what are you offering to people, have it be comprised of no more than three big ideas, not, a million different things you're trying to come across with. Three
Mhm.
big ideas, like the breakthrough code. I have three big ideas.
Mhm.
Focus on less and obsess. Upgrade your story, upgrade your life. Pack your day with effective action. With speaking, I've got three big ideas. Even though it's a book with 52 chapters, but they all align to one of three big ideas. Each of the chapters in my book win the presentation game. So the first one is, you've got to create a compelling story. The second big idea, I believe, for speakers is you've got to show up feeling like a winner. You've got to show up feeling good, in growth mode, in flow mode, knowing you did well. Again, a lot of the stuff we're talking about before. You got to know in your head you've crushed it before you get up to do it. You've got to think of people in a way. Like, I think of everyone that I speak to, even though most of them I don't know, I ahead of time, I'm thinking, man, I had a great time with this group.
Mm.
And I had a great time. I put in the past tense. I connected with them instantly, and we had a blast. They were like my friends and family. I create a whole story in my head that makes me feel great. So when I go up to speak, it's easy. And then the third big idea is, you've got to energize and engage whoever you're talking to. So if you come in and you've got, very little energy, and some people will tell them, I'm naturally, I don't have a lot of energy. Hey, that's fine. But when you communicate to another human being, flip the switch. I'm not walking around with all this energy all day. I'm just not one of those people. I'm actually naturally introverted, but when I need to be extroverted, I can flip a switch, and I can use my voice and my body language and increase my charisma, which is just your presence plus your energy plus your warmth. Anyone can do that.
So that's the key then, the three pillars. And I guess when people are facing a presentation that matters a lot, they tend to worry a lot, and they tend to be anxious, and obviously public speaking is something that people fear more than death itself sometimes. So it's about getting your mind in the right space to be able to almost embrace these people like family. You're serving them, you're coming to contribute, you're replaying that message of how it has gone over
Yeah.
and over, a bit like what you did in the poker game. You're telling yourself the story that you want to happen.
Yeah. One thing that I do tell people is that nervousness is a selfish emotion. Because who do you have to focus on to be nervous? You got to be focused on, oh, how am I going to do? I can't make a mistake. I hope they like me. Your presentation is not about you. You said it, you're contributing. I believe that when I get up to speak, like even doing this podcast, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for the people that get to listen to it. I want to help them. I really care about all of you that are listening to this. And so because I'm not focused on me, I'm not nervous, right? Is he going to ask me a question? I don't know. I don't know what questions you're going to ask me, but whatever you're going to ask me, I'm going to try and help people. So when you get off yourself and you just go in there going, all right, let me help some people today, whatever it is. If you're talking to a customer, trying to, help them with a problem they have with a service or a product you have, like, don't focus on, I want to sell them this, focus on, I want to help them solve that problem they have. And when you go in that way, your nervousness tends to evaporate. And then again, it's putting in your mind the right things. Like if you say, I always get nervous before I go speak, if someone says that, your superconscious mind is going to run that program. Hey, she's getting ready to speak. Make sure she's nervous, right? But you did that. You did that. There's one of two ways you show up in any situation in life, particularly presenting. You're either in protective mode. You're afraid of making a mistake. You're trying to protect yourself. You want to look good, or you're in growth mode. And when you're in growth mode, then you can make a mistake and it's no big deal. I've flubbed probably 28 words already just on this podcast, but it's not a big deal. I'm not worried about it. I'm not beating myself up. It's just what happens when you're in a conversation.
So this is what everyone means about then when you're an entrepreneur, you're striking out, you're going into the unknown, and you're willing to fail. You're willing to put yourselves in positions to fail because you know that that's all part of the journey. That's all part of the process, but you're also feeding your mind with the right bits of information to be able to kind of create a new story about the failure.
Yeah. And rather than calling it even failure, just, you're going to learn, like, you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Right. That's all. Failure is just, if you use it right, it's just a learning experience. And it's temporary and it's painful. And sometimes it doesn't feel good, but we need that occasionally in our life to not feel good, to rethink, to question some things, to grow, to read a new book, to listen to another podcast, to find help, to ask somebody for help. Like otherwise we just keep going the same path and then we keep, living the same life. Life is set up for you to grow. So it's not failure. It's just a learning experience.
Tom, what you've shared today, thank you so much. Like, I think you've really helped people, just even this last piece on creating a life of freedom, just feeling more free and easy and going with the flow and being able to tackle problems as they come up and sort of less about reacting and responding and being able to go into situations with that new energy. Your book, The Breakthrough Code, it is a breakthrough in itself. I can see that this is the condensed version of all the knowledge that you teach, everything that you've learned so far in your life, and it is there to really serve, to go out and serve, just like you coming on this podcast today. Because I know you don't have to do this. This is huge. The fact that you came, you're a busy man, you've given keynotes all over the world, speaking, coaching, you've got engagements everywhere. So I'm just truly grateful for this conversation, for the work that you're doing, and I'm blown away by your ability to be able to plant ideas and effectively communicate. And it's been a joy to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's been great being with you, Tim, and I can tell you're super successful and you're just getting started. There's so much ahead of you. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for helping all these people that listen to you.
Thank you, Tom.